Today we'll be talking about a science fiction film called Crocodile Island. Be ready for some spoilers ahead. In the year 1945, a group of soldiers is flying home after winning the Second World War. However, they quickly realize that something is wrong when they enter the Bermuda Triangle. Soon, the aircraft equipment begins to malfunction. At the same time, they notice several giant creatures flying toward them and crashing into the planes. The soldiers are forced to jump out immediately and use their parachutes to break the fall just in time. When one of the soldiers finally reaches the island, he realizes they are not alone. He watches in horror as a massive crocodile leaps out of the water and devours another pilot in a single bite. The creature disappears, leaving the soldier stranded on a mysterious island filled with monsters. Many years later, a commercial airplane is also passing through the Bermuda Triangle. The passengers are completely unaware of the dangers surrounding them. The main character, Hal, is a single father traveling with his teenage daughter, Lynn. He is clearly unhappy about her new boyfriend, whose name is Man. Hal demands to know how long they have been dating. However, his daughter responds with annoyance, leaving him staring angrily at the boyfriend. Before their argument can continue, the entire airplane suddenly begins shaking violently. The passengers panic and rush to put on their oxygen masks. Things become even worse when the pilots realize that the aircraft equipment is failing. With no other option, they slowly attempt to land the plane near a nearby island. Before the aircraft can safely descend, the passengers notice several gigantic birds flying toward them. The creatures slam into the engines and cause severe damage. As a result, the airplane rapidly falls toward the ocean. The pilots desperately struggle to maintain control, but the aircraft is violently torn apart. Due to the pressure difference, several passengers are sucked outside. Meanwhile, Hal fights his way toward his daughter and eventually secures himself to a seat beside her. The airplane crashes into the ocean, and the damaged aircraft begins drifting across the water. However, the pilots soon realize they are heading directly toward dangerous rocks. The aircraft slams into the island and breaks into pieces. Passengers are thrown around violently, causing many of them to lose consciousness. When Hal finally wakes up, he rescues his daughter and brings her safely onto the shore. There, they discover that only a small number of passengers survived the crash. The survivors soon realize they are stranded on the island. With no other choice, they begin collecting whatever resources they can find. However, they quickly discover that there is barely any clean drinking water left. To make matters worse, their phones have no signal in the area. The group realizes they may not survive for long if they remain trapped on the beach. Hal decides to venture into the forest in search of more resources that could help the survivors stay alive. He enters the jungle alongside his daughter's boyfriend, Chan. Before long, they discover a small building hidden among the trees. Inside the shed, the group finds several weapons and, most importantly, an old notebook written by a soldier from the Second World War. Luckily, one of their companions is a professor who can read English. After examining the journal, the professor discovers terrifying information about the island. According to the notebook, the island is filled with giant monsters. This shocking discovery convinces the group to return to the beach immediately and warn the others about the danger. Meanwhile, back at the shore, a survivor named Pham gets into a fight with a woman over the only bottle of clean drinking water available. Fortunately, another survivor named Lee steps in and punches Pham in the face to stop him. The fight continues near the water while a flight attendant desperately tries to calm everyone down. At the same time, no one else is willing to help. Lee's pregnant wife, Gia, also rushes over with her sisters and attempts to pull her husband away from the conflict. Eventually, she succeeds in stopping the fight before things get worse. Suddenly, the survivors notice movement coming from the ocean. Moments later, a crocodile attacks the flight attendant in the water. Everyone panics and immediately starts running for their lives. At the same time, numerous giant reptiles crawl onto the beach and begin attacking anyone who is too slow to escape. When Hal finally returns from the forest, he is shocked to see that the beach is completely empty. The only thing left behind are giant crocodile footprints scattered across the sand. Hal believes the survivors are still alive, so he quickly follows their trail with the others. Meanwhile, the remaining survivors continue being chased through the jungle by the deadly creatures. Anyone who falls behind is quickly devoured by the monsters. As the chaos continues, the survivors become separated into smaller groups while escaping in different directions. Lynn eventually reaches a clearing alongside Lee and his pregnant wife. Not long after, they discover fresh water, allowing the exhausted group to recover from their thirst. However, Lee suddenly begins hearing strange noises coming from deep within the forest. The group becomes nervous as the sounds grow closer. Fortunately, they soon realize that it is only Hal and the others arriving at the clearing. The survivors are finally reunited once again. However, before they can celebrate, Hal notices strange vibrations in the ground. Everyone freezes in fear as the loud noises continue getting closer and closer. What the survivors do not realize is that a giant crocodile has been hiding behind the rocks the entire time. time. The massive creature slowly reveals itself as it towers over the terrified humans. The monster slowly approaches a nearby victim, staring at him with rage. In fear, the man loses control in front of everyone. The survivors watch helplessly as the victim is swallowed whole by the giant creature. Panic spreads instantly and everyone begins running in a desperate attempt to escape. The massive reptile charges at the group in fury and leaps toward Hal. However, Hal narrowly avoids the attack at the last moment. The creature quickly shifts its attention to a woman trapped between the rocks. It catches her and devours her in a single brutal bite. The survivors manage to escape the area just in time and temporarily lose the creature. Hal then leads them toward the abandoned building he discovered earlier. He suggests they use it as a temporary shelter for the night. He also tells Chan to keep watch in case the hostile creatures return while everyone sleeps. The next morning, Hal decides to search for fruits, so his daughter will have something to eat when she wakes up. Meanwhile, Pham survives along with a woman named Lychee. However, Lychee is more focused on looking important than staying safe from the monsters. In her carelessness, she ends up covering herself in a strange, sticky substance. She demands that Pham clean her immediately, but Pham is strangely more interested in her messy appearance than helping her. They do not realize that the sticky liquid actually comes from giant spider egg sacs. At the same time, Lynn wakes up and tries to go outside in search of her father. She quickly notices that giant insects have surrounded the area in the fog. Inside the building, the survivors try to wake each other quietly to avoid attracting attention. They slowly attempt to move outside without being detected. However, their plan fails when one survivor discovers sticky liquid on his head and is immediately killed by the giant insects. The others witness the attack and realize more creatures are approaching. They are forced to flee again as the monsters chase them closely through the forest. The chaos reaches Hal, who immediately rushes back after hearing the screams. The survivors continue running through the jungle, but they are suddenly blocked by the massive spider-like creature. The monster attacks them using its giant legs, trapping the group in a deadly situation. At the last moment, the professor distracts the creature and saves them from being killed. The spider turns its attention toward him and begins chasing him instead. He leads the monster away from the others, giving them a chance to escape. But there is no time to rest. More creatures are approaching from all directions, forcing the survivors to run deeper into the forest once again. The survivors desperately try to escape the incoming enemies and eventually manage to lose the creatures by hiding inside thick vegetation, hoping the spiders will give up the chase. Unexpectedly, they hear footsteps approaching their position. They soon realize it is Hal, who has noticed the monsters in the area. Hal shouts to distract the creatures and deliberately lures them away. The monsters immediately follow him, giving the others a chance to escape. He runs back toward the wooden building and finds the professor also hiding there for safety. However, they are unaware that the monster is already waiting to ambush them. The creature suddenly attacks from above, forcing them into a fight for survival. Hal struggles to defend himself while the professor is critically injured and eventually dies. This leaves Hal alone as the monster continues its attack from the roof. He is overwhelmed and repeatedly slammed into the walls. The creature tries to drag him in for the final kill, but Hal manages to break free and escapes at the last moment. He throws a grenade at the monster, causing a massive explosion that destroys it. Meanwhile, the other survivors successfully escape the area. They soon reach a small river that they must cross to continue their escape. However, a crocodile suddenly appears and attacks them, shocking everyone. The boyfriend attempts to fight back but freezes in fear, unable to react properly. This gives the crocodile an opening to attack. Before the situation gets worse, Hal arrives and saves him at the last moment. The crocodile roars aggressively and charges toward Hal again. Hal narrowly dodges the attack, causing the creature to fall into the water and disappear. With the danger gone, he reunites with his daughter and they embrace each other. Hal assures her that everything will be fine from now on. At the same time, the woman who was covered in sticky fluid finally finds clean water. She and Pham begin drinking to relieve their thirst. The woman then starts washing herself in the water without noticing anything unusual. Suddenly, she hears a splash behind her and realizes they are not alone. Before she can escape, Pham approaches her, trying to get close to her. However, she rejects him immediately, leaving him embarrassed and frustrated. Just as they prepare to leave the water, something grabs the woman from below, dragging Pham in with her. This causes Fang to kick the girl repeatedly, as if she is infected with a deadly disease. As a result, the woman is quickly dragged away and devoured by the massive reptile. On the other side, the survivors continue moving through the forest. To their surprise, they discover a crashed airplane that likely belonged to the soldiers from earlier. They search the wreckage for useful equipment. Eventually, they find a machine gun and a radio that is still working. Lynn quickly uses the radio to call for help. For the first time, the group feels a small sense of hope for survival. The survivors decide to head straight toward the beach. However, they unexpectedly encounter another survivor, who turns out to be Fang. Although the group does not trust him, they have no choice but to let him join them. Hal, however, keeps a close eye on him to keep him away from his daughter. Soon, the group reaches a wide river that they must cross again. But the pregnant woman is unable to swim in her condition. The survivors work together to build a simple raft for her. Meanwhile, Hal volunteers to swim across and pull the raft from the other side. He successfully reaches the opposite bank. One by one, the others begin crossing the river. Everything seems to be going well, but Hal suddenly notices something dangerous approaching. The giant crocodile rises to the surface once again. Panic spreads as the survivors desperately try to swim to safety. The massive creature charges toward them in the water. Lynn manages to reach the other side safely with her boyfriend. Fam swims in a different direction to escape. Meanwhile, the husband is still in the water, pushing his wife toward safety. Realizing they cannot all survive, the husband makes a final decision. He pushes his wife away and sacrifices himself in front of everyone. The crocodile immediately attacks and devours him. Gia screams in horror and breaks down in tears. The crocodile then turns its attention back to the remaining survivors. Hal opens fire with the machine gun to protect the group. He continues shooting while the others run for their lives. The creature relentlessly chases them through the water and onto land. The survivors manage to reach a clearing in the forest. Hal keeps firing to hold the monster back. At the last moment, he jumps away to avoid being caught. The giant reptile continues its pursuit as the group splits up in different directions. Fam eventually falls behind due to panic and weakness. Lynn notices this and runs back to help him. However, Fam betrays her and throws her toward the crocodile. Lynn is left in danger as the monster moves in to attack her. Just in time, Hal distracts the creature by firing continuously at it. He draws its attention away, allowing Lynn to escape. The bullets begin to damage the monster's thick skin. However, in the chaos, Fang is accidentally hit and becomes paralyzed in his legs. The creature notices the injured man and immediately charges toward him. At the same time, it uses its tail to grab Lynn. The monster moves in from behind, ready to strike. However, Fang suddenly suffers a heart attack due to extreme stress and collapses onto the ground. This moment of chaos allows the creature to strike again. It quickly swallows Fang whole. Hal continues chasing the monster to save his daughter. Soon, he discovers a path leading into a dark cave and follows it with the remaining survivors. Inside, they carefully move through the large tunnel. They soon realize the giant crocodile is sleeping near the rocks. Sean tells the others to return to the entrance immediately. But before Gia can leave, she sees her husband's body and breaks down in tears. Her emotional breakdown puts everyone in danger of waking the monster. Fortunately, she regains control of herself just in time and continues forward. The group carefully moves through the cave while avoiding the sleeping beast. Hal eventually finds his daughter, who is still alive. He immediately tries to get her out of the cave, but Chan suddenly notices that the creature has disappeared from view. He quickly realizes it is now right behind him. Hal sees the danger and understands they are in a critical situation. Chan freezes in fear, unable to move. Hal is forced to open fire to protect everyone. Chan then grabs the opportunity and rushes toward Lynn. He carries her away from the cave entrance. As they attempt to escape, the monster turns its attention back to Hal. Hal runs deeper into the cave, using himself as bait to lead it away. He hides in narrow tunnels and tight corners to confuse the creature. Meanwhile, Chan successfully brings Lynn to safety near the entrance. He hands Lynn over to Gia and immediately decides to go back to help Hal. Armed with weapons, he rushes back toward the danger. At the same time, Hal is running out of places to hide. The monster nearly attacks him from behind. Hal desperately sprints through the cave and jumps into a small passage while firing continuously. However, his bullets become ineffective as he runs out of ammo at the worst possible moment. He then realizes he dropped his grenade near the creature. Chan eventually returns and reunites with Hal. Hal tells him to find the grenade before the monster breaks through. Chan quickly searches the rocks in a panic. After a desperate search, he manages to find it. He immediately runs toward the creature and throws an object to distract it, drawing its attention away. This gives Hal a brief chance to escape. The monster turns and begins chasing Chan instead. Chan quickly pulls the pin of the grenade. He throws it toward the creature as it closes in. This triggers a massive explosion that shakes the entire cave and severely damages the giant creature. It appears to have killed the monster. Hal sees this and starts moving back toward the cave entrance. He also acknowledges the young man's bravery and courage. However, just before the survivors can leave, they realize the creature is still alive. Hal quickly grabs a knife and rolls down across the rocks toward it. The crocodile charges at him again. Hal strikes from below and manages to cut it open. This final attack kills the giant monster as it collapses for the last time. Chan immediately rushes in to pull his friend out from under the creature. Fortunately, Hal survives the final battle. The survivors manage to exit the cave safely and reunite with the others. In the end, the group finally escapes the dangerous forest and heads toward the beach. The sun rises as rescue helicopters appear in the sky. So, what do you think about this movie? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more content. I'll see you next time.